So it's your bro Bully, and today we're just gonna be doing yet another My Hero What If. So let's get into it. Yeah, so with that being said, this is what if Deku was Superman's son? This would pretty much all start off with Deku being born, and since then he'd be able to use some weird powers without even being told having a quirk. So he'd think his quirk would be super strength. Until was when he was about to fall, when he was getting to the doctor's office, he would start floating. And that's when he would realize that, he can fly. And, obviously, since he is Superman's son, it's not Azuka Midoriya, it's gonna be Azuka Kent or whatever the last name was, the fake one. And Deku would pretty much be flying, and he would basically show his dad, and once he gets news that his bone structure is not as normal as regular humans, and you don't have a quirk, he would be like, "What? But I'd be able to fly and have super strength," and that's pretty much like what he's saying. And the
We're
doctor
all
doesn't
happy.
know how he's doing it. It literally seems impossible for him to do so. So Deku is pretty much just wondering this as he, goes home. But that's when, his father pretty much says, or just reveals that, he's kind of Superman and you're gonna have to train because there's no telling how long he is gonna be Superman. So Deku would train for the 10 years. And, since he wanted to be a licensed hero, he wanted to go to the best, school for heroing of all time, UA. So he would pretty much make a trip to Japan, pretty much studying, Japanese, because he doesn't even know if they're going to be speaking English there. Once he does, get there before the 10 months, he would train more and more. And along the way, he would, be caught by the slud villain. Or not really. The slud villain would try to go attack him. Deku would just turn around and laser beam him with his eyes and just not even paying attention to him. So now the sludge is just a burnt mess. And that's when All Might pretty much comes and picks it up and brings it to the police, and it doesn't attack Bakugo. So Deku continues on with his life, with All Might pretty much telling him to go to Degama Beach. He knows of All Might, but his favorite superhero is Superman, and you're gonna have to give it to All Might, for second place. So he would go to Degama Beach the next day, and he would see All Might there. That's when All Might would ask him what was his quirk, and he would say who his quirk was, and All Might would try to, get an answer out of him, like, how did you be able to use the laser eyes? And Deku says, it's not really all I can do, but, it's just something I could do. And All Might really thinks this is weird, but he already sees that he's pretty trained up for One for All, so he just starts to spill the beans, I guess you can say, and pretty much give him the whole rundown about everything, pretty much telling him about One for All for One, and the injury, and asking him if he would accept his quirk. And no, Deku would pretty much would pretty much say no initially, until All Might would say that they won't let you in if you don't have a quirk. And so Deku would take One for All, even though not everybody knows about it, but you can't just say they don't have a quirk on there. So it's just gonna put it as a enhancer type. It has a enhancer quirk to enhance his super strength and speed. And now he's just gonna explain the laser eyes that he can enhance his eyes to the point where they start, shooting heat waves off of them. And Deku would pretty much that's pretty much what he's gonna explain to people. And Deku will basically accept the quirk and train with it, and he can use a good percentage of One for All, like 80%. Now on to the UA entrance exam. So he would pretty much, ace the written test, and he would walk out of there like and he would pretty much get, a good score on it, and he would, go to the explanation for the robots, and he would get his center after the explanation. He would be out there outside of the gate, pretty much stretching while having like a big smile on his face. This would catch Ida's eye and sees that he's not, that he's not nervous and at all. And he would see that he's kind of he kind of sees like, oh, he thinks he's strong, and Ida kind of blasts off, and when he looks back, he only sees Deku there still stretching. And that's when Deku would pretty much run past Ida and jump through one pointer and keep on continuing to get multiple points. With the match about to end in about a minute, he would hear the ground rumbling, and with that, no, so that so that you would hear the ground rumbling, and that's when the zero pointer will the come to the what do you call it? Would come up from the ground and knock over a building, and the debris from the building would fall on Uraka. So with Deku pretty much seeing this, he would go and have to run over there or fly over there. So he would fly right between the robot when it was about to step on Uraka, pretty much pushing the foot and crushing it. And he would pretty much fly up and hang the robot from the air. And while he's dangling the robot through the air, he would use his laser eyes to split it in half, cutting it down to size, and it would fall apart. Then, he would pretty much save Uraka and bring her to basically nurse or recovery girl, and he would just leave. With that being said, he would pretty much be knowing that he got in, and days later he would realize that he did get in and he got the top score. So that's just a double whammy in his hands. And he pretty much comes to school and finds class 1A, and he would see Tenya, Ida, and Bakugo pretty much arguing. And as he's about to walk in, he would get a tap on his shoulder, pretty much from the girl that he saved, saying, "Oh, well, thank you for saving me." And Deku would pretty much say, "Yeah, it's all fine." And they would go and sit down, and Ito would basically go up to Deku and ask him how he knew about the practical exam. And Deku, just about to say something, but what do you name? Aizawa pretty much tells him to shut up and go outside. So Deku and the class, they do go outside, and Aizawa hands the ball to Deku. He says, "You got first place on the entrance exam, so you should throw the ball." And Deku would just say, "Okay," and it would catch Bakugo and Todoroki's eyes. Todoroki wouldn't really say much on the outside, but Bakugo would get angry. He said, this little wimp got first place," and Deku would just look at Bakugo and smirk. He says, "I don't even know who you are," and he would continue to throw the ball for a good 100,000 meters. He says, "Okay, I just wanted to use just very little of my strength, and just walk away." And he would pretty much continue on to get first place in everything except for the ball throw. But luckily, he has a second chance at it. So he would look at the ball and he would tell everybody to stand back. He would pretty much throw the ball, and once he does throw it to its maximum height, he would pretty much throw it to like the 100,000. Then, fly up, catch it, then throw it again. And he would do this at light speed. So pretty much, it was too fast for anybody to even notice that he was doing it. So once it does round up to to infinity, he would get first place on everything, tying with Uraraka on the ball throw. Now, for the hero versus villains. Deku would pretty much, be tied up with Uraraka, or what? Would be teamed up with Uraraka versus Bakugo and Todoroki, just to make everything more interesting. Bakugo would obviously go down because he's even more intrigued and maybe even more slightly mad that this random kid, this show off, would come and try to make himself king, as Bakugo would like to see it. And Deku would pretty much be looking at him like, nah. And Deku would just laser beam, just pretty much just use his laser beam eyes just to fuck up his gauntlets. And now Bakugo's gauntlets are unpullable because they're actually stuck together. So now Bakugo's hands are stuck together, and Deku just captures him. Bakugo is screaming out, "You didn't win! You didn't win! You cheated! You cheated!" As him and Uraraka walks up to the second, third, and fourth, and even get to the fifth floor. Deku just says, we might as well just both go in there. And, they both walked up in there while Ida is having his monologue. He would go for Deku and try to kick with a reciprocal burst, and that's when Deku would duck and push Uraraka out the way, protecting his teammate and not getting hit. So with Ida having his little downtime and his recharge for a reciprocal burst, they'll be able to get the bomb in time and win the hero versus villains. Days later, they'll be told about the USJ and how what's going to happen there. And Deku and the class are pretty happy to learn about rescue training. So they would go pile up on the bus and talk about quirks. They would get to Deku and ask him what his quirk is, and Deku would basically say, well, my quirk is pretty much a enhancer quirk. I can enhance any part of my body to an extent where, let's just say if I enhance my eyes, I can make lasers out of them. And people are like, that's kind of cool. And, once they do get to the USJ, they would, eventually see the portal open and see Shigaraki and Kirigiri and a bunch of villains come out, with them pretty much being frozen, as never seeing or, feeling or being in the presence of a villain, somebody with murderous intent. So, with them all being frozen, they would pretty much be trapped in portals and deported to different places. And Deku would pretty much say, well, okay. And he would pretty much look at Froppy and Mineta and make a plan. And the plan would be Mineta makes some purple balls and uses his pop-off quirk to, throw it in the water to stick the people together. And Deku would basically jump down and use his quirk to basically knock him out, and Floppy could use her tongue to pull him back in. So that was the plan, and it all works out perfectly fine. They take out the bad guys and they go out to even help. By the time they go out to even help the other students, by the time they even come back to Aizawa, they can already see that he's getting smashed to the ground. The Nomu is taking care of him real good. And at this point, they didn't like that. That's their teacher. So they all get into a fighting stance, and they all go to charge at Shigaraki, the Nomu, and Kirigiri. Kirishima and Bakugo would both go for Kirigiri. Seeing that he smoked, it would be the hardest battle. And, they don't get nowhere because he is untangible. So, Kirigiri doesn't really have to dodge. And, he can just walk away. So, Bakugo and Kirishima, pretty much being irritated by this, they would go out to help their classmates. But they would just see Deku fighting the Nomu alone. Deku would pretty much be caught off guard by the Nomu's movements, and the Nomu would hit him dead in the face. Then, and as for just dramatic effect, Deku would fly all the way to the wall. And that's when he would just get back up and look at the Nomu and start sprinting at the Nomu. And Bakugo in Kirishima sees what he's doing, this suicidal fight it seems. And Deku is screaming at the top of his lungs from the pain that he is feeling. Basically, that thing just broke his spine. And at this point, you see what's in the picture. And his eyes are just going like this brightest white type color. And he's going Super Saiyan mode. He's pretty much is about to attack the Nomu 100% of one for all. And Deku is pretty much about to blow a hole through this Nomu. Shigaraki is like, your filthy power won't win. He has shock absorption and regeneration. And Deku would scream out, I don't care. I don't care. Detroit smash. And he basically smashed the Nomu and damn, I just realized I just said something weird. Well, the Nomu would fly away outside of the USJ, pretty much depleting its life force. It's dead now. That's when All Might would burst into the door and take, or try to take care of Kirigiri. But Kirigiri would slip right past him, use a portal for Shigaraki and him to get out, and leave the rest of the fodder villains to get arrested. So Deku and the rest of the class would basically, or just the rest of the class is looking at Deku, and Deku powers down and falls. And at this point, he don't even look like he's alive anymore. So, he gets taken to the hospital with a recovery girl at his side. So Deku pretty much is recovering from the massive amount of damage he took, and this is not very good. He's even more angered by this that he couldn't even beat, he barely beat the Nomu, and he's kind of angered by this. So he trains more, even though he wasn't even fit to. He pretty much escapes the hospital with and just starts training even more. Deku is pretty much determined to, if he ever sees those again, he wants to take it out with one hit. He doesn't want to he doesn't want to put anybody else in more danger. He knows that he only survived what he got because of who he is, but anybody else, they could have died easily. So he had to train a lot more to protect those people who can die just as easy as other people. So Deku would train to the point where he would be late to UA. So once he does get back into the class, people would not even expect him. And he would just come back into the class, and he'll be right in the middle of the talk of names, and Deku would pretty much pick the name Superman because his dad is actually gonna retire once he becomes an actual hero. So he is gonna become the new Superman. So Deku would basically just be like, yeah, my name's gonna be Superman. And later on, Midnight would basically come into the room and explain the fucking sports festival. So the sports festival is pretty much being explained and why Deku can't be in it. And Deku just says, yes, I can. And he just walks out of there, giving them no chance of really saying no, he can't. So he would walk out of there and enjoy his life. He'd basically be training even more for the sports festival. And eventually, his mom and his father would basically realize that he's pretty much overdoing his work. So he would he'd pretty much chill out for a couple of days. He would come back to UA pretty much fine. And he would pretty much come back and Deku is not doing the best, but he's fine. So they do explain it, and he's on the podium, and he says, "I hope you all win." And no, Deku would walk off, inspiring everybody because just because who he is. And once he does get to the race, he would just speed past everybody by flying, cause he would just speed past everybody by flying, and Deku would just zoom past. He would get first place, and on the cavalry battle, he would pretty much have Uraraka, May, and you know, uh, damn, I forgot his name. The bird, the bird. And he would have those free, and he wouldn't get his 10 million had been snatched away, because he can just laser people's hands. And people would just stay away from him. So Deku would pretty much be all secure. Okay, now on. Well, actually, I can't do much more, so it's gonna be under. It's been your boy. So yeah, bye.